Hello everyone, welcome back to Pommy and Oz. I hope we're all doing really well. If you are new around here, please smash that like button, smash that subscribe button. It really does help the channel out, and it just means you're enjoying the content, so I get a bit of affirmation that way. What we're going to do today is we're going to talk about Carlton. We're going to talk about Melbourne, who are perhaps the best defensive side in the competition. One of the most prudent backlines in the comp. And if there's anything that we can learn as a Carlton fan of how to get the best out of our backline. So without any further ado, let's get into it. So what we know about Melbourne this year is they've been one of the most prudent sides in the comp at conceding points. They are exceptionally hard to score against. Now, partly that comes down to the trio that they're using down the back at the moment in Lever, May and big Adam Tomlinson prior to him getting a bit hurt. And it's amazing if you actually look at the structure of that back line. What it does really well is its ability to really keep its line and keep its formation really well. They really do drag forwards away from playing in goal, and that's partly from their threat at intercepts. Lever and May both absolutely killing it in the intercept marks. Tomlinson as well flies in there as well, and also Maxi Gorn, with him coming down as well, it also creates that little bit of an issue. You found this year as well, a lot of key forwards have been drawn to Max Gorn when he drops behind the ball, particularly when they're defending because of his height. What this does for a forward structure when you're playing against them is it means that they come more their defensive 50 side of the goals. And that is also something that Melbourne do very well. You look at their defensive sets, it literally starts in their forward 50. They are the number one comp at tackles inside 50. And they play very deep towards goals. There's almost like a line of 3 players. Their full forward line is almost like 6 paces in from the goals at any one time. And what that does is it creates width, first and foremost, but also it pegs the back line in. And you've found that it allows, when they do turn it over, and they're one of the least turned over sides in forward 50, but when it does happen, because it's so deep and the pressure's so good, it allows their defensive and their midfield units to spread back into sets and really does slow it down. You actually find that Melbourne is ranked top 3 in the comp for how many touches it takes to get from a defensive transition, and that is their formation there. When you go down the back, what they do really well is they influence the forwards. It's very hard when they've got their line of defence. They defend really deep, really high up the ground, and they really push it really well. And you find that quite often in the transition, it's almost just a couple of steps in the defensive 50. And what that does really is it encourages the long bomb. They're very good at doing that. You saw it against Carlton as well. There's that much space behind them that you find teams get caught in the trap of trying to launch an early 50 and try and get one out the back. Melbourne are clever here because what they do is they've got 3 very good intercept players in the forms of Tomlinson, Lever and May, and then that goes out to their smaller guys. And structurally what that does is it just creates them outnumbers all around the ground. And as you've seen from Melbourne, because of that real good defensive zone that they play, their transition is also very good in themselves because they get to hit you on the counter. And when teams start becoming under pressure to score, they try new things. That desperation long ball comes in. When you've got players like Lever and May who are very good users, they can really change that defence into attack. Now, how can Carlton replicate that? Now, it's quite ironic because when you look at their defensive line, ours kind of stacks up in the terms of we've got Jones, who's very high up, albeit in the defensive numbers because we are hemorrhaging inside 50s, but also our ability as well. We've got Wheater, who is a very strong intercept mark himself and very strong. And then you've got Lockie Plowman. Then when you look at the players that we've got to play alongside him now, Zach Williams and Adam Sard, you've also got that potent threat on there. For me, what we do lack down there is probably another stopper. Now, if you look at a stopper, it's 2 things what Melbourne are good at. 1, their structural prowess, but 6, and 2, their makeup. They're 6 down the back. Their makeups all complement each other. Now, it's interesting because all 6 of their backline can use the ball really well. Carlton traditionally That sixth is kind of like a hybrid at times for us. And it would be someone that, if you actually look at this VFL game, it's very early to say it, but Brodie Kemp might add something. He's got a bit of height, which creates that awkward matchup like Melbourne's backline does, but it also creates another avenue that he's an exceptionally good user, and he finds the pill. And them kind of players then can start to put the pressure on them. I'd also like to see, you see Mark Pitternet, he spends more time, and he's a very key part of Melbourne. He's Max Gawn, and him going behind the ball kind of works as that backstop. When these tall players go back, you see it with Grundy as well at Collingwood, forwards gravitate towards them because they start to take a few intercept marks. Someone's got to go on him. It's the nature of the beast. And I'd like to see Pitternet go behind the ball a bit, even TDK, because TDK is decent in the air as well. That's their extra behind the ball. Carlton traditionally send a Will Setterfield or something. Not really as potent as when you've got a big burly ruckman who can take marks. Now for the forward line, it's the intent and the pressure. And that also starts in the midfield. One thing Melbourne do really well is their spread at stoppages is absolutely insane. You look at the average running patterns of their midfielders, even particularly their inside midfielders. Once Oliver's got the job done, the players are spreading. It's creating width, it's creating layers of defence should you turn it over, because there is players scattered around the ground in almost like a line. It's very military-esque, it's very disciplined, it's a very simple system, but one that's underrated. You watch Melbourne when they turn the ball over, there seems to be D's all over the place. It's a very spread. Choco Williams has got that hunger as well, that intent to get the ball and repair the damage. And then when you get to the forward line, it's very awkward to get the ball out of 50. A high percentage of rebound 50s that Melbourne do concede are under what's called red category pressure. There is a player within tackle length all the time. You see when players play them, it's very tough because they're very forward up the ground, so they're really condensing your avenue. And then they have this wonderful approach that when it hits the midfield, that backline drops off a little bit. You find Gawn swings behind the ball, and they've got a wall of 7-8 players waiting for that inside 50, trying to tempt that long ball in. You find they defend the corridor very well, which gives them time again because the wider part of the ground is a bit longer. And it's something that Carlton can replicate with we've got the right men in our arsenal. You think that Ed Kerner, Walsh and Cripper, they've got the inside game there. It's more the spread. And it would be interesting to see, can Carlton mirror their offence that they have now? And if they can get the Melbourne defence they've got there. And a player that I'd look at that is Jack Martin on the wing. Very defensive minded as well. He's a very good defender in himself. But he's also got that ability to track back and run two ways. You look at Melbourne and you look at their passages of play, it's almost 18 behind the ball, 18 moving forward. It's a very good system that Melbourne play. It's a really interesting one for people to watch. And it's something I implore you to do. It's very simple. And basically the mechanics are quite simple. It's defend from the early part of the turnover, very high up the ground, and really encourage the almost lay traps to play that long ball down the wing. They give up the wing quite a bit, the fat side of the ground, because it allows them to set very quickly. It's not by being fitter, it's by being smarter. And it's something that Carlton could quite easily replicate. As opposed to watch Carlton, it's kind of everyone runs back in a straight line. You watch Melbourne, they kind of run diagonally. They really try and give up that fat side of the ground and allow themselves to set. But the keys to it are the forward pressure, the ability to spread from stoppages quickly, and third, being brave to fight deep and create pressure from your intercept marking. You find Melbourne at the start of the game are a little bit more vulnerable than they are at the end of the game because them intercept marks start to come into it. That's the talk then of Melbourne and Carlton. Let me know what you think. How would you try and get that into the system? I think that's definitely structurally, we don't defend hard enough when the ball's turned over. And for me, Melbourne are the blueprint at the moment this year of how to do it. Till next time, I'm out.